Okay, we're started.
Okay, I'd like to start the meeting here, the public session of the Borough of Forest Hills, November 18th, 2020. Pledge of Allegiance, Mayor Porco, please.
All right. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor. Roll call, please.
Mr. Burley? Mr. Burley? I see him on there, but I don't hear him. Ms. DeMarco?
Here.
Mr. Erbaldinger?
Here.
Mr. Gorel?
Here.
Mr. Lawrence?
Here.
Mr. Thielacker?
Here.
Mr. Tomasic?
Here.
Mayor Porco?
Here?
Ms. Sullivan?
Here.
Mr. Corbel?
I'm here.
Mr. Gilliland?
Present.
And I'm here too.
Okay, moving on to the president's report. I would just like to say that, again, we're sort of going backwards at this time in terms of the COVID-19 virus. I ask that everybody be safe, especially with the upcoming holidays. But the good news on the horizon is that we do have a vaccine, which they're hoping to get out before the end of the year. It's supposed to be 95% effective approximately. And then there's a second one as well. So that's the good news. We all got to stay safe, keep wearing those masks, keep social distancing, keep washing those hands, do the best you can. If we get through this, we get to the vaccine, maybe we'll have this thing beat sometime early next year. That concludes my report. Mayor?
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Under my report this evening, just wanted to go over a couple of things. As mentioned, our COVID cases, obviously countywide, are increasing significantly. We are averaging over 400 new cases per day, and the case positivity rate is averaging at about 18%. So based on latest results since last Thursday, we've added 17 new COVID cases in the Borough of Forest Hills, just for the Borough of Forest Hills. That takes the total case count to 74 cases in the borough. Now, compared to other communities, I think that those numbers are still okay. But as you can see, we've kind of had a significant uptake, and it's impacting us locally. Myself, the borough manager, Steve Morris, and our emergency services coordinator, Keith Morris, met last week. And I believe that Keith, in a separate meeting, had an opportunity to meet with Chief Williams as well. And so I want to inform all of council that I think that what we need to do is start stepping things back from a borough perspective to the same protocols that we were following in the spring at the onset of this pandemic, which means that we're going to continue to maintain our public works department in two separate workforces to mitigate the spread of the virus, which we basically began that in the spring and never really drifted away from that. There was some talk about commingling all of the workers together, but I think we kind of have to stay on our current schedule with them and kind of keep the teams separated a little while longer. I also want to move our police department back to a staggered shift, which we will kind of adopt slowly, but eventually get there, where we're staggering start times for our officers, again, to minimize groups of being in the locker room and in the police station at the same time. I've been advised already that several departments throughout the county have been informed that members, or in some cases, entire departments have had to quarantine And we're certainly trying to avoid that situation for our community. Okay. Furthermore, I've asked our facilities coordinator to suspend all rentals of our facilities, which means the Westinghouse Rec Center will no longer be available for renting, nor the pool lodge, nor any of our properties until further notice. And I've also asked our Public Works Department to post signs that the parks are going to be closed. I understand, of course, that people will be walking through our parks. There's nothing much that we can do to actually stop that behavior, right? The idea being, though, is that, again, just urging people to use common sense measures, wear a mask, socially distance. But I do want to make sure that people understand that congregating, especially around playground equipment in close proximity, is something that we should be, not encouraging, but rather discouraging. And so the posting of those signs, I think, number one, just kind of gets the message out. And secondly, I think it also, kind of sends, it also just kind of, I think, protects us in terms of the fact that we're discouraging congregant behavior in our community. If you look at the Allegheny County numbers, you'll see that the vast majority, I think a quarter of the cases right now in the county are in the 20 to 29-year-old bracket, right? Age group bracket. But it's fairly surprising to see that the next, I think, number or another big bracket is actually 10 to 19-year-olds. And so what I think is happening here is that there is some correlation to group sports. And obviously, I think college activity, people going out in bars, being social, et cetera, and that's causing the spike in cases to kind of occur. So again, just would encourage everybody to please follow the appropriate protocols. Also in the borough, just as an FYI, we received a notice today from the supervisor of the C.C. Mellor Library, and in light of the recent stay-at-home order, which I believe was issued today by Allegheny County Health Department, the library in Forest Hills will be returning to a contactless pickup model where people are going to be dropping books off and picking them up, curbside. So outside of that, the only other thing I wanted to do was just report that the feedback on Halloween was pretty positive overall. Some of the children, of course, were disappointed because they wanted Halloween to be at night. And that's certainly understandable, especially for the kids. But overall, I heard that it was successful. Lots of kids, depending on the neighborhoods, more kids than others, but still plenty of kids out getting candy. Lots of feedback that people actually ran out, which was good to hear. And then lastly, I just wanted to take an opportunity to wish my colleagues and all the citizens in our community a very happy and blessed Thanksgiving, and wishing you all just a very safe and healthy holiday. And that concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tax collector's report, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The tax collector report is for the month of October. Our real estate current year collections in October were $8,044. Refunds issued during the month were $1,633. So after refunds, we netted $6,411. Year to date, I've collected $2,821,264. That is 97% of our current year budget of $2,912,587. And that's the end of the report.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Chief of Police. Chief Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a few remarks. First, I'd just like to say all the residents to please keep an eye out for their neighbors here. I mean, these are really, really trying times, and some of the older people may not have as many visitors as they used to have. And if you happen to see something unusual, for example, mail piling up in a mailbox, please call 911 and give us a chance to go to that door and at least check to make sure that person's okay. Or maybe we'll already know that they had already left to go somewhere else, or maybe they've been hospitalized for some other reason. But again, we'd like a chance to know that, all the residents are going to be safe. And if we're not available to, go door to door as we can't, if everybody would just keep an eye on their neighbors, that would certainly help us to make sure that everybody is all right. I mean, again, people aren't getting as many visitors as they used to. Maybe some of their family are trying to stay away just to make sure that the older resident is safe. So again, if you could just call 911 and have us come and just check in case you see something unusual, again, mail backing up, paper, if they get a delivery of newspaper, something like that, that would be a clue for us to maybe go and take a look and see what's going on. If the resident didn't want to do that themselves, the neighbor, we could go and do that for them. But again, we'd like the opportunity to have a chance to make sure that everybody is okay. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Chief. We have no, Richard isn't here, Chief Thielacker, Chief Mastrandrea. Moving on, solicitors report, please, Mr. Corbel.
And nothing to report this evening, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corbel. Wilkinsburg Penn Joint. Ms. Bras did provide us with the following. There were 4 breaks in the borough, 1 on Forest Hills Road, 2 on Overdale, and 1 on Cascade. Their budget meeting will be held next week, and she's indicating that there will be a small rate increase. So that concludes her report. Other committee reports, Ms. DeMarco, please. Connect, Allegheny League, and Allegheny County.
I have only one report from Connect, the longtime director of the organization at University of Pittsburgh Graduate School of Public Health, Dr. Dave Miller, passed away yesterday. So we are in condolences with him. I know Steve know him. He had a long battle with cancer, which he finally succumbed to just last night. So we will be sharing our wishes with the organization for that.
Nice, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it just happened yesterday, Steve, late. So we will be probably establishing some kind of a scholarship memorial in his name. But right now it's just, it just happened. We don't have any plans in place yet with the family. I have nothing else to report right now.
Thank you, Mr. Marco. Mr. Lawrence, anything?
No, nothing to report.
And Mr. Thielacker?
No, no report.
Thank you all. All right, public comment, agenda and non-agenda items. All persons wishing to address items based on the explanation below will be heard at this time. The directions will be to raise the hand icon on the bottom of Zoom screen to request to speak. Following announcement of the start of the public comment period, this period again focuses on both agenda and non-agenda items. At this time, citizens may address council on any issue appearing on today's agenda or any other issue you may wish to bring before council. Only residents and taxpayers of the borough of Forest Hills will be permitted to address council. This is the only public comment period for this meeting. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before council, who may speak for a maximum of 10 minutes. You would be requested and asked to spell your name for the record. Speakers are reminded that council uses these comment periods as opportunities to gather information and not to respond directly to concerns raised. Information gathered will not be discussed at the business meeting, but instead will be referred by the council president to the appropriate committee for review and discussion at the next committee meeting. Those directions being read, is there anyone who wishes to address council at this time? Getting any responses, Mr. Mayor?
There's 2 attendees who are, but neither one of them have raised their hands. My assumption is that they're not interested in speaking at this time, but maybe just listening in on the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, let's move on then to the committee reports.
Okay. Nope. That was just a confirmation. Nothing to say. Okay. Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, committee reports then. Operations and policy, Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to approve the minutes from the October 21st, 2020 council meeting.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? None being, voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Motion passes.
Okay. I don't think there's anything new in the general report, so anyone can look at the minutes and read them over. And I believe that concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Finance Committee, Ms. DeMarco.
thank you, Mr. President. I have a motion to approve the payment of bills for the month of October in the following amounts. From the general fund budget, $161,952.61. From the corrective action budget, $11,818.33. From the fire protection fee, $9,263.69. From road improvements, $258,001.32. And from the capital improvements plan, $97,991.99.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions or comments? All right, roll call, please. Mr. Morris.
Mr. Burley. I see Mr. Burley, but I'm not hearing him. He says yes. Ms. DeMarco,
Yes,
Mr. Erbaldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Goro,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, motion passes.
thank you. I have a motion to authorize the borough manager to advertise the preliminary 2021 budget and capital improvements plan, which may be considered for approval as a final budget at the December 16th, 2020 regular meeting of council.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
There's a direction that the budget will be on the website, and it will be available for review on that location for anyone who wishes to comment.
All right. Roll call vote, please. Mr. Morris.
Mr. Burley. Yes. Ms. DeMarco,
Yes,
Mr. Erbaldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Goro,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, motion passes.
thank you. I have a motion to authorize the solicitor to prepare and advertise ordinances, one covering the updated police pension plan and one covering the updated non-uniform pension plan.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on this motion? None being, voice vote, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and motion passes.
Okay, we are still working on the 2021 capital improvements plan. And we have a second draft of the budget, which we reviewed in committee. There are a number of notes here that I direct to your attention. We have an annual tax levy by resolution, which we'll be able to prepare for December's council meeting. And I think I have no other comments at this time for finance. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. DeMarco. Borough Property, Mr. Thielacker.
Thank you, Mr. President. My first motion is I move to accept the bid of SSA for security work at the Forest Hills Westinghouse Lodge in the following amounts. It's a total of $11,104.40.
Second.
I'm sorry, with the additional cost of internet access, so that total will slightly go up.
Okay, I believe we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on this motion? None being, roll call vote, please, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Burley,
Yes.
Ms. DeMarco,
Yes,
Mr. Erbaldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Goro,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, motion passes.
I move to ratify the decision of the Borough Property and Public Safety Committees to award replacement of the firehouse roof to S&N Industries in an amount of $66,600 as recommended by the borough engineer.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions or comments on this motion? None being, please. Roll call vote, please, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Brule,
Yes.
Ms. DeMarco,
Yes,
Mr. Erbaldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Gorel,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, motion passes.
And the only thing I wanted to mention in my general report, everything else is available on the agenda, is that the pickleball courts we're looking into putting in at Cook Park. That's been an issue for the last year or two. A lot of people have been bringing up. It's something we have been working on. So we're talking about putting one at Cook Park where the old tennis courts are. So we're still getting details ironed out, and no matter what, it won't, nothing will be done until springtime. We're hoping to get that done for next year. That concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thielacker. Planning and zoning, Mr. Burley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any motions today, but under my general report, our manager is continuing to take care of the sidewalk inspection project. It's going to be put into outstanding items until it becomes more important for us to talk about. And also our code inspector, Mr. Don Branzel, has talked to us about the pruning and the tree removal project to 2021. So, we're trying to make sure that we can get it done. And I think Duquesne Light's trying to help us get the project completed. And Patty reported to us on the climate control plan, and it's going to be a public hearing around December 16th regarding it. And that's it in my report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burley.
and just a note, if anyone wants any advance information, the climate action plan will be presented to the Environment Advisory Council tomorrow evening. I sent it to all of you. Any of you who are interested are welcome to attend that meeting to comment on it if you wish.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Public Works Committee, Mr. Gorel.
Move to approve resolution number 1215, authorizing the president of council to sign agreements with PennDOT. This is in regards to the upcoming culvert and related work along Ardmore Boulevard.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, please? None being, roll call vote, please, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Brule,
Yes.
Ms. DeMarco,
Yes,
Mr. Erbaldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Gorel,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, motion passes.
Two things under my general report I did want to address because I've had some calls of concern from Cascade Road residents. We are working diligently to get the leaves up off of the street, as we do know that the water company is going to be ripping up the street. And I know that they have started to do so to replace the line there. And my second issue is with an email that Marcus and I received this evening in regards to the sidewalks at the current borough building, which we will look into further at December's committee meetings, and we'll probably move it from Public Works to borough property. So if we can add that, Steve, under the agenda for December, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Gorel. Public Safety, Mr. Erbaldinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hang on. I have a motion. Hang on, I have to scroll down. Move to authorize the police chief to purchase a new 2021 Ford hybrid police vehicle at a cost not to exceed $46,000.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? None being, roll call vote, please, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Brule,
Yes.
Ms. DeMarco,
yes,
Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Gorel,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, motion passes.
I have one more motion. Move to authorize the engineer to perform a traffic study on Sylvan Road to determine the proper speed limit.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions or comments on this particular item? None being, voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have it, and the motion passes.
My general report can be read in the agenda, and that concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Moving on, old business. Anything under old business? No, that nothing has been listed. New business, Mr. Gorel.
Yes, I would like to put on the record that Mr. Tomasic is using his public position as chair of the Borough Council to retaliate against me for exercising my First Amendment rights. Specifically, in the 2017 election, I had the audacity to run against Mr. Tomasic, and he is determined to punish me for that. I will give you two examples, but there are far more. First, he instructed borough employees to cite me for having violated the borough's grading ordinance, even though I clearly had not. Secondly, he appeared at my zoning board hearing on August 10th, 2020, to pose my innocuous request for a variance to erect a fence at my residence. Because he lives nowhere near me and therefore is not a person aggrieved, was standing to oppose my request, he testified that he was council president, even though council had not authorized his participation. In pursuing his private vendetta, he is utilizing public employees, spending the borough's money, and violating the open meeting law, commonly referred to as the Sunshine Act. At the October 21st council meeting, he announced that following the public meeting, council would be holding an executive session to discuss litigation and personnel matters. That is not sufficient description under the Sunshine Act. The public is entitled to know what litigation matter. In that instance, the litigation matter was my earth-shaking variance request. And then he doubled down in the executive session itself by asking for and receiving council's authorization in private to send its solicitor, Mr. Corbel, or a colleague to my zoning board hearing. That official action, which triggered the expenditure of borough funds, was required to be voted on in public. Mr. Tomasic, however, does not want the public to know that he is wasting taxpayer funds while pursuing a personal vendetta. Participation in the democratic process has recently been front and center in our public discourse. No person, whether a voter, a candidate, or an elected official, should be penalized for exercising his or her free speech rights. For that reason, I do not intend to be a pincushion for Mr. Tomasic's unlawful actions. Thank you.
All right, moving on. Since there's no other things listed under old or new business, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
I will be closing everything out and stopping the recording right now.
All right, thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.